Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to CIWEM's Presidential Induction 2024. My name is Bushra Hussain. I'm the outgoing president, and I'll be overseeing the first part of the proceedings today, after which I'll be handing over to our incoming president, Hannah Burgess. And this is just a reminder that the proceedings today are being recorded. So let's have a look at the agenda. As you can see, we have a tightly packed agenda. In the first half, I'll be reflecting on my presidency, and we'll be hearing from the outgoing junior president, Emily Clark, for her thoughts on the past year too. We'll also be announcing the winners of this year's presidential awards. And in the second half of this session, I'll be handing over to our incoming president, Hannah Burgess. Hannah and the incoming junior president, Peter Rook, will give an insight into their theme for this year, which is all about resilience and adaptation. There'll also be an opportunity to get to know Hannah and Peter better through a discussion and an interactive Q&A session led by Alistair Chisholm, CIWEM's Director of Policy, and Kieran Murnane, Environmental Hydrologist at Mott MacDonald and Chair of CIWEM's Early Career Group. And the viewers can also send questions through to Hannah and Peter as well. So let's have a look at my presidency. If we can go to the next slide, please. My journey with CIWEM began in 2006 when I became a chartered member, and now 18 years on, I'm a fellow, a trustee, the 37th president, and the first overseas president. My theme this year was all about the importance of inclusivity, where everyone's voice is heard, irrespective of who you are or where you are in the world. This is one of CIWEM's 7 enabling principles. Our commitment to embracing a diversity of thinking and developing an inclusive culture where everyone's voice is heard is at the heart of who we are. Our global water and environmental challenges need input from multidisciplinary professionals and diverse communities across the world. The issues we face today cannot be solved unless we all work together, irrespective of where we are in the world. And that was the message of my theme this year. If we can go to the next slide, please. During my presidency, COP28 came to the UAE, which is where I've been living for almost 3 decades now. Some of the outcomes that resonated with me were the presence of the indigenous people for the first time in the history of COP. Indigenous people seem to have a profound understanding of nature, something that we in the developed world seem to have lost sight of. I truly believe those in the developed world would have much to learn from the indigenous people. The continuation of the loss and damage fund for the most vulnerable groups, which ironically are often the lowest carbon emitters, but are destined to bear the brunt of climate change. And the beginning of the end of fossil fuels in favour of blue and green alternatives. As I work in the energy sector at Worley, I'm glad to say the change is coming, albeit slow, but it is certainly coming through. If we can just change the slide, please. I had the opportunity to be a guest speaker on the Planet Possible podcast to reflect on the outcomes of COP28 alongside Annie Shepherd OBE, who's chair of CIWEM's trustee board. My magic wand moment was to see a more aggressive approach to the energy transition, and Annie's was to see an end to wars around the world. Sadly, neither of our wishes have come true so far. And if we can change the slide, please. And this started off as a simple introduction between myself and the current ICE president, Dr. Anusha Shah. And there were some clear similarities between our presidential themes, and this made us want to do something together during our presidency, and that culminated into this. We can go to the next slide. The first cross-presidential forum for nature positive solutions. presidents from 14 institutions came together and pledged to make this an annual event whereby we would mutually agree up to 3 environmental issues per year that we would collectively raise as one voice for a greater impact. This is the most important legacy of my presidency, as this will be passed down from president to president across multiple institutions and will hopefully gain momentum as the years pass. A huge thank you goes out to Dr. Anusha Shah and the ICE for hosting the event this year. And this event took a lot of planning between the ICE and CIWEM, and it couldn't have been possible without the support of the junior president, Emily Clark, who worked tirelessly with the ICE and the Arcadis team. Unfortunately, Emily couldn't be with us here today, but she really wanted to be part of this induction. And so she recorded a message for us. So let's listen into that.
Hi everyone. Apologies I couldn't be with you live today, but I wanted to share some fun about my time as CIWEM Junior President. When the opportunity arose for me to apply to become CIWEM's 3rd Junior President, I absolutely leapt at it. I'd seen Matthew and Emily do amazing things in their terms, and I wanted to follow in their footsteps. This last year has been so much fun, from working with and supporting the fabulous and brilliant CIWEM President Bushra Hussain, working with the wonderful and supportive CIWEM executive team and the all-star wider presidential team. I've given numerous speeches, written articles and represented CIWEM and our members at various events. I've worked closely with our amazing and talented Early Careers Network and been utterly inspired by the future leaders of our sector. I've grown personally and professionally, and I've developed my confidence, learnt new skills, advocated for gender equity and raised awareness of neurodiversity. It's absolutely flown by far too quickly, but this last year has been one of the most rewarding years of my career to date. This unique opportunity is the role of a lifetime, and if you'd like to become a future junior president, then great news, because we're recruiting for our junior president-elect right now. As junior president-elect, you will shadow and support the incoming junior president, Peter Rook, and you will also work with and support John Curtin as you develop your shared presidential theme, which will launch next October, and then you'll become junior president from October 2025 to October 2026. There's more information on the role on the website, and of course details of how you can apply if you're interested. Okay, that's my final plug over. Honestly, thank you to everyone who's supported me over this past year, to everyone who's connected with me, sent me lovely messages, commented on and shared my social media posts, and generally just cheered me on. This experience is one that I'm never going to forget, and I cannot wait to see what our future successive junior presidents get up to in their term. For now though, I'm delighted to be handing over the baton to Peter Rook. Peter, you're going to smash it. And I hope the rest of you enjoy the rest of this presidential handover. Thank you, everyone.
Emily has been the most invaluable support as junior president, and I'm so grateful to have shared that journey with Emily. Now on to the presidential awards. This year, we wanted to celebrate people at various stages of their careers and for different reasons. So here are the categories and here are the winners. Next slide, please. The award for early careers goes to Megan Robertson. Megan is a senior environmental scientist at Wessex Water. She's a member of 3 steering groups with the UK water industry and the Environment Agency. She's co-authored a number of publications and has recently become a visiting fellow at the University of Bath. And all this within just a space of 5 years. Congratulations, Megan Robertson. Next slide, please. The Driving Diversity Award goes to Nicole Boache. Nicole is a chartered principal consultant in WSP London, and she is a staunch advocate for promoting equity in the workplace. She's the chairperson of the WSP's Championing Racial Equality and Ethnic Diversity Group, and in her role as CREED chair, Nicole has been instrumental in collating and sharing the stories and experiences of diverse groups of colleagues And in doing so, she has been an advocate for continuous improvement to equality and diversity in the workplace. And she's a STEM ambassador too. Congratulations, Nicole Boache. The next one. The Ideas and Innovation Award goes to Richard Crowder. Richard's work on a 2D solver during his PhD has stood the test of time, as today it is an integral part of Flood Modeler. Flood Modeler is an indispensable tool for numerous national flood forecasting systems, including the Environment Agency, and is globally seen as the gold standard. The application of Flood Modeler in over 100 countries for flood risk mapping and its critical role in designing solutions to mitigate flood risk underscore its global impact, safeguarding millions of people and protecting the environment worldwide. Congratulations, Richard Crowder. And the next slide, please. The award for progressing CIWEM's international efforts goes to Li Ping Kun. Li Ping has been volunteering for CIWEM's Hong Kong branch for almost 25 years, taking on various roles over the years from committee member, senior vice chairman to chairman. Thank you, Li Ping, for raising the profile of CIWEM on an international level, and congratulations on your award. The next one, please. And the outstanding performance goes to Joanne Barlow. Joanne has contributed to countless river projects during her 20-year career and has made a substantial long-term commitment to CIWEM, furthering CIWEM's goals and upholding its values. Joanne has had an involvement with CIWEM for over 12 years, with her most notable role being in the Rivers and Coastal Group as a committee officer for over 8 years. Congratulations, Joanne Barlow. And the award for lifelong commitment goes to Oliver Griefson. Oliver's outstanding work in supporting CIWEM in a multitude of voluntary positions for over 35 years has been truly remarkable. His support of CIWEM's mission and objectives through volunteering for its Professional Standards Committee, Professional Development Function, and policy specialist panels and groups has not gone unnoticed. Oliver is also recognised as a long-standing and valued wastewater and bioresource panel member and member of the Urban Drainage Group. The Lifelong Commitment Award is given to individuals who exemplify CIWEM's values, and Oliver Griefson is truly worthy of this award. Congratulations to all the winners and all those that were nominated. And that's it from my presidency. It's been an incredible honor. I look forward to continuing to serve CIWEM as immediate past president and to remain part of the presidential team supporting our incoming president and junior president. And now it's time to give the baton over to Hannah. It gives me great pleasure to hand over the reins to CIWEM's 38th president, Hannah Burgess, and the junior president, Peter Rook. Hannah, it's over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bushra, and thank you for everything that you and Emily have done over the last 12 months. So good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening. So my name is Hannah Burgess. By way of introduction, I'm a fellow of CIWEM and a chartered water and environmental manager. I've worked in the flood and coastal sector for over 21 years now. And for nearly 20 of those years, I've also been volunteering for CIWEM alongside my day job because I love it and I love the difference it makes to people. And I can see the difference it's made to people I've supported along the way as well, which is why I keep coming back for more. So it is a great honour to be the president. In the past, I've chaired the Rivers and Coastal Group, including during the 2013-14 winter floods and a rewrite of policy over the weekend. Al probably still remembers that. The same way that I do. I've also sat on the East Midlands Committee for a while, and then I joined the West Midlands Committee, and I was the chair of that for 3 years, including through most of COVID. I'm heavily involved in the Flood and Coast Committee, and I've previously been the deputy chair of the Flood and Coastal Erosion Risk Management Expert Panel, and I've also been a trustee of CIWEM for the last 3 years. So that's alongside my day job. As my day job, I work for a consultancy called Binnies. I'm a regional delivery director looking after our flood and coastal services in the Midlands, Scotland, and nationally for local authorities. I'm also a great believer in equity in the workplace. From my former employer, I was the National Equalities, Diversity and Inclusivity Champion. And I'm also one of the founders of the Women in Flood and Coastal Erosion Risk Management Initiative, and also the first chair of, so Binnies is part of RSK, the wider RSK Women's Network. And I'm really proud of that. And we've had some interaction with CIWEM along the way. And outside of work, we thought it'd be nice to share a bit of who we are alongside what we do as a living. So I like to run. That's probably fairly obvious from this picture in the Bluebell Woods here. I like to practice martial arts. I like to grow flowers, and I love to look after my cats. So over to you, Peter, to introduce yourself.
Thanks very much, Hannah, and good evening, everyone. I'm Peter Rook, and I'm honoured to introduce myself as the new junior president of CIWEM. So for those of you who don't know me, I've been working in the water and environmental sector for nearly 8 years, and I'm a chartered water and environmental manager who focuses primarily on flood and coastal risk management. For my day job, I'm a senior analyst and team leader at JBA Consulting, where I lead a team delivering work primarily for local authorities, such as strategic and site-specific flood risk assessments, and also carries out property flood resilience studies and other sort of studies for local authorities. I've been really fortunate over my career to date to have had the opportunity to work on both sides of the table, much like Hannah actually. And before I joined JBA in 2020, I actually started my career at East Sussex County Council, delivering part of its role as a lead local flood authority. So a lot of that entailed working on sort of local flood risk management projects and working in sustainable drainage. So I'm really excited about our new presidential theme of adaptation and resilience, which we're going to come on to in a moment, as I really think that it represents the shift we need as an industry to not only manage risks, but to also create the systems and communities that can really thrive in the face of climate change. So Emily's obviously left some fairly big shoes to fill as junior president, and she's been really invaluable at providing lots of support. But I'm looking forward to engaging with all of you throughout the year, particularly CIWEM's Early Careers Network. In my career to date, and particularly the last couple of years where I've been a team leader, sort of empowering and championing some of our graduates in JBA has been something that I've been really passionate about. And particularly through the CIWEM Early Careers Network, which I believe does some brilliant work, it's just something I'm really passionate about. And the role of junior president itself really reflects the importance that CIWEM as a professional institution places on supporting early to mid-career professionals. So considering the green skills gap and the scale of the challenges we face, supporting early career professionals is really going to be key for the challenges we face in industry. And they really bring some of these fresh perspectives and energy. And I think that providing the right mentorship and development opportunities, we can build a sector much more resilient and adaptable to the climate challenges we face. And just to add, outside of work, I really enjoy carnivorous plants, so I cultivate those. And I also enjoy kendo, which for those of you who don't know, involves hitting people on the head with wooden swords. So yeah, thanks everyone.
We're in the midst of a climate and ecological emergency. The impacts of our climate change, pollution and ecological crisis to environment like never before. The work of our sector is critical to support communities and businesses to become more resilient and to enable our environment to adapt. CIWEM's members are our greatest strength, and those of us charged with water and environmental management must act now to ensure its protection, adaptation and enhancement, and in doing so engage with and influence wider society for the benefit of everyone. At CIWEM, we believe in empowering people acting in the interest of the planet and looking ahead to the possibility of change for the future. "20 years ago, at the start of my career, we talked about climate change as a possibility in the future, but it sat low in the overall public consciousness. Today, the evidence points overwhelmingly to a rapidly warming climate and the impact that has on our communities, our society, and our environment. Newspaper headlines about climate change are now commonplace due to the increasingly tragic impacts of extreme weather events. And there are clear warning signs of more to come. Our natural habitats are struggling to adapt to the pace of environmental changes that this brings. And our ageing water infrastructure is creaking under the pressure of population increase. It can be easy for all of us to feel disengaged and powerless in the face of the scale of the challenge, and I know I can feel overwhelmed at times. However, the skills and expertise of our membership is a huge resource for wider societal and environmental good. We need to share our capabilities with the wider world to enable us to scale up the pace at which we can adapt to climate and environmental change. At CIWEM, we are dedicated to advancing the science and practice of environmental and water management for public benefit. And in our presidential year, we want to engage with you and empower you to be change makers.
In my career to date, I've experienced the sector change at a remarkable rate. I believe for the next generation, the water and environmental sector will look very different than it did a generation ago. Together, we can create a sector that recognises the central role of communities for place-based adaptation, that has moved from managing risk to building resilient places, that manages our water sustainably, that utilises CPD to share best practice and equip our professionals for the future, that harnesses new technologies like artificial intelligence to drive efficiencies and transform our ways of working. And more than anything, a sector that brings together parties from far and wide in a common cause for good. Our early careers professionals are tomorrow's industry leaders. Empowering and championing them is instrumental in helping build a future more resilient to climate change.
No one individual can solve the climate and ecological crisis. Our strength is in collective action as professionals in the water and environmental sector. Let's take action, inspire others, and share our knowledge by starting a ripple. How far will yours spread?
Wow, there we go. Just kind of 5 or 10 minutes in, and I feel we all know you a lot better already. But ladies and gentlemen, we've got about 20 minutes now to dig a little bit deeper into that background of Hannah and Peter. And before we do that, I just wonder if we can stop screen sharing, please, because we really need to see Hannah's chain a bit closer up than you can do right now.
I'm not sure about that, Al.
Okay, so the way we're going to do this, we're going to have about 10 minutes where Kieran and myself are going to gently grill Peter and Hannah with a few questions. And then after that, we'll have about 10 minutes where we'll take questions from participants in the audience. So if you'd like to use the Q&A function, please, to post a few questions, we'll pick those up after our initial discussion. So I think I'm going to kick off, if I may. And really, this is a question to both of you. So your overarching theme is adaptation and resilience, but you've got this concept as well of the ripple effect as your sort of presidential concept. How and where did you arrive at that? And how do you think it reflects your experience over the years with CIWEM?
Yeah, thank you very much, Al. Like many of the ideas that I come up with, they normally come up to me in the middle of talking. I do tend to talk quite a lot. And Peter and I have been meeting with various members of the CIWEM exec for the last year. And I realise it's taken me a while to kind of build up in my head what I've wanted to achieve working in partnership with Peter as president. And one of the biggest things I've realised is the feedback that people have given me along the way over the last 20 years, which is one of the reasons I keep doing CIWEM, because it's really nice to get lovely feedback. And I've realised sometimes it can be the smallest thing that I've said and done, and sometimes not even realised that I've had a positive impact on people until years later when someone will say, Hannah, you once said this to me, or you once had my back, or I went to a conference and I heard you say this, and it's made a difference to them. And it's made a difference to them in a way that they can influence other people as well. And that made me think about the ripple effect. And it made me think about the fact that in our sector, and CIWEM has 11,000 members in 89 different countries. That's a huge bank of knowledge and expertise. To meet the climate and ecological emergency, we really need to share that expertise, and it's critical that we do that so we can share our knowledge, not only within our own sector, but within the wider sector, within related sectors, and with the public. So to me, this idea of a ripple effect was born out of that feedback that I've had from people. And I thought, actually, if we can all have a positive influence on other people, who knows where that ripple will spread to? Who knows how that ripple will merge with ripples from things that other people have said and the difference that will make? We don't need to know that difference, but the positive influence we can make will be critical to helping us achieve the level of pace that we need to adapt to climate change.
Thanks, Hannah. I mean, you've had a positive impact on my career, I have to say, and there's been things that you've said that have really, really helped and inspired me personally. So, yeah, absolutely. Peter, what does it mean to you?
So for me, the concept of adaptation and resilience is really key and represents this sort of paradigm shift we've been seeing in industry over the past few years, moving from just simply managing risks or trying to avoid those risks to realizing that we just, climate change is happening. And whilst concepts such as net zero and sustainability are incredibly important, a certain level of damage has been done and we need to adapt to that, learn to become more resilient as a society and as an industry as a whole. I think the other thing and the other reason why it really resonated with me was in recognizing the breadth of experience within CIWEM itself. And I think one of CIWEM's greatest strengths is that breadth of experience. I think Hannah and I are both cognizant of the fact that both of us are from a similar sort of technical background in flood and coastal risk management, but obviously you've got such a broad range of experience within CIWEM, people in the water industry, people maybe more of the environmental or regulatory side. And the concept of resilience and adaptation can mean something different to every one of those professionals we've got working in our sector. So we wanted to explore that as a concept. I think even more broadly than that, looking outside of climate risks, we wanted to explore the concept of resilience within our own career and professional development. Most of us will be, well, most of us are sadly not that close to retirement age, but we're going to have long careers ahead of us. And within that time, there are going to be lots of changes that are going to happen. So we wanted to explore the ideas of using CPD as a tool to upskill. I mean, right now we've got this sort of AI revolution ongoing. I mean, I love things like ChatGPT, but it's about recognizing and embracing these opportunities and learning to adapt to that, really. And yeah, I think obviously I think Hannah's gone into quite a bit of detail on the tagline for the ripple effect, but really it's about amplifying those efforts through collaboration and the shared purpose and ensuring our combined actions as professionals can create lasting changes.
Yeah, and Peter, I guess just to build on that, you mentioned early careers there, and the sort of, I guess your theme around resilience and adaptation is particularly relevant to early careers people within CIWEM. So I guess from my perspective, looking at it from the sort of early careers network aspects, what can we do to sort of contribute to the activities that you're doing over the next year and that Hannah's doing as well?
And I think, first of all, it's great to acknowledge all of the brilliant work that the Early Careers Network does and the importance CIWEM as our professional institution places on that. And the fact that I'm sat here now in this role as junior president is testament to that. in fact, the importance that CIWEM placed on early careers, because not all professional institutions have that. I think last week a colleague actually emailed something across from the Chartered Institute of Waste, but I think they've started developing a similar role to the junior president actually. So yeah, that's really great. I think as early careers professionals, one of the most brilliant things you can do is really lead the way in innovation and fresh thinking. I mean, obviously we recently attended this event at the Sky Garden, which is a sort of joint CIWEM and WAVN event. And it's those fresh perspectives and energy and really leading the way on adopting and integrating these new technologies into our work where I think early careers professionals can really shine. In terms of the presidential team, I can see early careers professionals really engaging with our tagline of a ripple effect. So often what we find is early careers professionals, or ECPs, are the most engaged in driving forwards these initiatives and advocating for that change. I think mentorship and knowledge sharing is another crucial part. And again, just moving back to that previous event, it was clear from a range of experience that people had in that room just how much we have to gain and learn from each other. I mean, for example, I don't really have much of a wastewater background, and I learned a massive amount from people in that room who did, for example. So I guess in short, I'd love to see the Early Careers Network, a bit of a shameless plug here, but breaking silos. Watch this space for the series the network's doing, but also just pushing boundaries and helping create those ripples that really just spread across our sector.
Lovely, thanks, Peter. And Hannah, you know, you've been involved with lots of different groups within CIWEM over the years. How have you seen that knowledge exchange really work and impact your career? And also in terms of the our technical panels, our groups, our branches, have you got any challenges for them directly relating to your theme that you'd like them to answer?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first part of that is how much of a difference have they made? And I think the answer is a huge difference. So I sat on the Rivers and Coastal Group Committee for about 10 years. I started as an early career professional, was no longer an early career professional by the time I'd been the chair of it 10 years later. But the value I got out of that from, you know, learning complementary skills, building a huge network, getting to go to lots of conferences and learn lots of things was huge. But also I could see the difference it made to people who engaged with those events. Some of you on the call may have gone to the Rivers and Coastal Group study weekends that we used to hold every springtime. They were hugely valuable in enabling early career professionals to network. And in fact, many of the connections in my career now, we're in more sort of senior leadership roles now, but a lot of us met 20 years ago, you know, on a boat trip, going out into Southampton Harbour or along the River Ouse at York or wherever we were on one of those study weekends. So they provide an amazing opportunity to learn and to network. In terms of the regional branches, they're a great opportunity. And when I'm mentoring people through their CIWEM chartership, you know, I will tell them to go along to branch events. But I often say, don't go to an event if they're flooding professionals. Don't go to an event on flooding. Yeah, go to one. But actually make an effort to go to one on air quality. Go to one on wastewater, because actually the first CIWEM competency is about wider environmental understanding. And what better way? I mean, one of the site visits we did in the West Midlands branch a few years ago, was when I worked at Staffordshire County Council, was to go to a recycling plant, a sort of energy to waste type plant in South Staffordshire. And just to see and experience a different part of environmental management was a huge benefit. In terms of how can branches and groups engage with us in terms of the presidential year, I would love them to do that. And we've gone out to all of CIWEM's branches and groups and asked them to come back to us with their thoughts on how we can best engage with them. So that'd be Peter or I attending events or helping to judge competitions, and going and meeting local members. That could be in person or it could be online. I'm also keen that we work with the panels. So one of the things that we want to do in our presidential year is have an active programme of communications. And there's several ways that we're going to do that. One of those is through a presidential blog, which we're calling the Presidential Ripple. And I'm really keen that to get the breadth of expertise across the water and environmental sector, we bring in people from the whole breadth of CIWEM's panels into that, so that we can write those blogs together to get their views. So I'm keen to work with panels there, and also keen to attend national events and work with like the Urban Drainage Group, for example, and Rivers and Coastal Group with Flood and Coast next year. In terms of my challenge, it's, help us spread the ripple and work with us and tell us how you think we can best do that together.
Thanks, Hannah. And I guess actually, I mean, that links into the next question I had. So you mentioned around obviously the importance of that communication within CIWEM, but I guess thinking beyond that, and obviously I think many people on this call know the importance of kind of getting our message out there and sort of, really disseminating the knowledge that we have to wider audiences. I guess, how do you think in this presidential year we can sort of build traction with that and really get CIWEM's messaging out there to wider audiences?
Yeah, good question. So I think the first thing we need to think about is, who are we trying to engage with and what are we trying to get out of that? So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but the flood and the water and environmental sector is huge, and not everybody thinks the CIWEM as their immediate professional institution they will align with. But there are other institutions we can work with. Bushra talked about the cross-institutional forum, for example. That's a good way of reaching out across the wider sector. But there's also parallel sectors like infrastructure and energy that I think we can engage more with. And then there are interested groups in terms of the general public as well. I think the key thing is that we need to not only tell, we need to listen. So, and I think that is really, really important. It would be very easy for us to sit here and tell everyone about, and I definitely don't, that's not really my style, tell people what to do. It'd be really easy for us, say, to sit here and go, right, we need to do this to become climate resilient. We need to do this to mitigate. But actually, how much impact would that have if we weren't listening to what people were telling us? So actually, how does it impact them as individuals or in the sectors that they work in? And how do they want to work with us? And what can we do for them as CIWEM members to enable those wider sectors to adapt? So one of the things we will be doing is it will be joint comms or joint events. So, for example, we're already talking to the British Hydrological Society, ADEPT, which is a local government membership organisation, Association of Directors of the Environment, Planning and Transportation. We're talking to Future Water Association, and we're talking to the British Dam Society, to name but a few, about how we can hold joint events and make sure that we both have a voice in those events.
Okay, I'm conscious of time a little bit, and we are starting to get some questions coming in on the Q&A. So I just want to end our little chat here by asking Peter, really. You mentioned in the video that you feel that the profession is going to look quite different in 10 years' time. Obviously, given the scale of the challenge that we face, we're going to need a bigger profession. You mentioned technology. Just give us a quick feel for what you think that profession looks like 10 years down the road, and what role CIWEM can play in that.
I'm not sure any of us can predict what's going to happen in 10 years' time, but thanks for asking that. It is really an important topic because the scale of the challenge is frankly enormous in terms of building resilience to climate change across the sector. When I think about the future of our profession, what I really see is a blend of this traditional expertise, the traditional engineering and modeling and environmental skill sets we have, but blended with new cutting edge tools like AI. I think as well, what we need to do is recognize the importance of interdisciplinary learning. It's not just about working in silos and mastering the core skills within our individual specialisms and disciplines, but it's about gaining a broader range of cross-disciplinary skill sets and an appreciation for what others in the sector are working on. For example, if you're an engineer, you shouldn't just be working on civil engineering necessarily. You also probably need an appreciation of nature-based solutions. And I think that sort of shift is happening already. But as we mentioned in our video, no single person or discipline can solve the climate crisis alone. But if we equip our professionals well with a wider set of skills, we can work more effectively to address that. And I think in terms of CIWEM's role, CIWEM is a major professional institution, and its role over the next decade is really to be a leader in that upskilling process. We can support our professionals through CPD, which is one of the pillars of our presidential theme, and offer training not just on new technologies, but on broader changes we're seeing across the sector, things like policy. And I think as CIWEM's in a pretty unique position to advocate for that sort of policy and investment, for things like Schedule 3, and just ensure that those frameworks are in place for people to really thrive in the future we want to build, really.
That's great. Thanks, Peter. So I guess we've got, as Alistair mentioned, we've got some questions in the chat already. I mean, to start with, there's a statement here from Maxine, who says, I'd love to see CIWEM get involved more in reverse training and mentoring, so transferring knowledge from early careers to more experienced people, as Peter has mentioned. And it's easy for professionals who become very experienced in one area to feel left behind in others. So Peter, that might be one for us to take away as in your role as junior president, and myself from the Early Careers Network point of view, to see maybe that might be some activities that we can get involved with. But
yeah, definitely. I mean, I think when I started my career, I was working with a much older colleague who was experienced in highway drainage design, but was, to put it very politely, perhaps less computer literate. So I think I learned firsthand there's a lot of knowledge transfer that can go on between someone on the very experienced side of the spectrum and someone who's much less experienced. It's just different skill sets getting transferred. Maxine, obviously you and I both work at JBA, so if you've got any ideas about incorporating that into our company mentorship scheme, I'd be happy to take that offline. But I think as a broader industry, that's definitely something we could look to set up as part of CIWEM.
Yeah, and I would add, through the mentoring schemes that we have at Binnie's, and also through the Women in FSERM mentoring, that actually as a mentor, I get as much out of it as my mentees. It keeps me grounded. It keeps me mindful of some of the challenges and thoughts that we have as early careers professionals. And it opens my eyes and helps me to be, I think, a better leader. Because if I can see, it's all very well and good me looking at it and going, well, this is what it was like 20 years ago. But there's a point there. If Peter can't tell us, and none of us can, what was it like in 10 years? See, 20 years ago, the industry was a very different place. And actually, one of the things that we had an early careers competition for the West Midlands and East Midlands branches in Birmingham last week. And the biggest piece of advice I gave to the ECPs there, having been laid down that challenge by the early careers chair, was actually the biggest thing people can do is to ask questions and constructively challenge the reasons why we do things. Because we need that to keep us on our toes, and we need the energy and enthusiasm of our early careers professionals to keep moving forward.
Absolutely. No, thanks, Hannah. And maybe I can direct this second question to you. So this is from one of our award winners, actually, Joanne. So Joe's asked, or Joe said, improved integration of, again, it's on ECPs, improved integration of ECPs directly into CIWEM as part of the presidential theme and Early Careers Network is fantastic. But how else do you think that CIWEM can support and engage in the challenge to future-proof skills and meet the scale of resources needed to solve the challenges that the sector faces?
I guess to me there are two things there. So there's something around future-proofing skills and something around resources. So I think, Peter's talked about AI. It was interesting that one of the questions I got asked in Birmingham last week by the early careers chair was about AI. It certainly made me think on my feet, which was a good thing. One of the things that I said there was that CIWEM provides a forum to have an open and honest discussion about the pros and the cons of these things and facilitate that, because all these new technologies are fantastic, but they need to be used in an intelligent way, and in a way that can enable our infrastructure to adapt and become more smart. But it needs to bring in the learning of professionals, as well as being a nice, great, shiny tool that does amazing things. So I think CIWEM acts as an opportunity there for individuals and professionals to share their expertise and also to share that honest debate on, you know, is this helpful? How would it be helpful? How do we need to make sure that we're sort of challenging it back where appropriate? I think the other thing is something around resources. So obviously one of the things CIWEM does best is hand out charterships, you know, and you know, that sets the standard. It was the way it was always put to me, is that, you know, I think a manager of mine at the time, who may be on the call, I'm not sure, but he'll know if he is, but he said to me, he said, oh, when you get chartered, Hannah, you know, that, you know, it's, you know, we could say you're great, but that's someone completely independent saying you're great as well. And that's always stuck with me. And that's what, in terms of growing the resources in our sector, you know, what standards do we need people to meet, you know, when they've got to that level of competency in their career that they can apply for chartership? And, you know, what role can CIWEM have in that? But yeah, it's a moving challenge, you know, and as our skills and needs adapt, the competencies will need to adapt to shape that as well. And who knows where innovation and technology go? Maybe that's my challenge to the Professional Standards Committee, you know, in future.
That's great. And I'm conscious of time, I know. So maybe there's one more question maybe that we can ask. So it's from Duncan Faulkner, who's asked, you've both focused on adaptation and resilience to climate change and related environmental crises. But to what extent do you think CIWEM should also continue to focus on other aspects of the water and environmental sectors?
Yeah, that's a good question, Duncan. Thank you. So one of our sub-themes is around the wider water sector. And we're, as Peter said before, we're quite conscious we're flood and coastal professionals by trade. We do want to explore through our presidential year through working with the special interest groups, for example, the water quality challenges. We know that's high in the public consciousness at the moment. Peter's talked about, if I go down this route for a minute, Peter's talked about resilience in terms of career resilience. We're very conscious of the pressure that water company employees are under, for example, and the public perception out there of the water industry. And that's an area I'm really keen to support as president, shine a light on that and say, how can we support those professionals to be resilient? So I think that's just one avenue. I could probably talk all evening about the others, but I won't do. Don't worry, Al. But yeah, I think our theme hopefully fits in a lot of what CIWEM does, but allows us to explore that angle there of what do we need to do, what's changing, and how do we need to adapt to that and support our members and the wider society, environment, and the economy to become more resilient. Over to you, Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. And that's the brilliant thing with resilience, is how all-encompassing it is. I mean, I think I've mentioned before, I'm more in flood risk management, and obviously you look at water a certain way in that particular way, in the same way that someone responsible for managing water resources would look at it from a slightly different perspective. But resilience doesn't just mean resilience to flooding. It can mean resilience of our water resources. It can mean resilience in terms of our ecosystems and how they can respond to sort of pollution and other challenges it faces. So I think it really is quite an all-encompassing theme. But at the same time, we've got these 5 pillars, which I think will probably be published as part of the CIWEM webpage. But yeah, those pillars just allow us to explore these different ideas in much greater depth. We've got the joint events, hopefully, Duncan, with the BHS, for example, where we'll be able to explore different pillars and sub-themes of our overall theme in much greater detail.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I think, you know, that multidisciplinary nature of CIWEM should really mean that the further those ripples spread out, the more you will touch on the wider issues, the more you will touch on people with far different skill sets. So just knits in beautifully, and a nice thing to end on. So thank you, everybody, for a really, really insightful chat. Thanks to the audience for your questions. I'm going to hand back to Hannah now to wrap things up.
Thank you, Al. Thank you to you and Kieran for hosting the Q&A. So watch this space, engage with us. So next week there will be a presidential webpage that goes live. I've seen a preview of it, quite excited about it. So you can watch that video again, you can share it with your mates' mates. You know, we had quite a lot of fun making it, but actually the text, we wrote that ourselves, you know, and it's things that we wanted to say and we wanted to share that were important to us. So I would encourage you to watch it back and really listen to what we're trying to say on that. So that will be on the webpage, as well as links to events that we're taking part in, both regional and national events. You'll definitely catch us at the Urban Drainage Group in November, and Freshwater Future in December, the next things that we've got coming up. You will find us on the Planet Possible podcast. I've been working with Nikki Roach on that. So I think December is the first podcast that we're down to take part in, and you'll find us the links to our blog through that website as well. So do engage with us and do join us to spread the ripple as far as possible. Okay, I think we're probably done. So thank you to everyone for taking part and joining this evening. Enjoy your evenings, and hopefully I'll get to meet you all over the next year. Thank you.